Hello and welcome to episode 14 of The Weekly Wash. Today, as usual, I've got another 3 recommendations for you. I think these recommendations will either expand your thinking or at the very least entertain you. From there, we will just kick straight on with the episode. Hold up. We're not going to kick straight on because I need to cover yesterday. I filmed this episode already. I had the entire episode filmed. It took me about 45 minutes to an hour to film, as it usually does. I had the entire episode filmed, edited, had attached the music to it, pretty much done. Just needed to do the final touches like some graphic elements and that. And then yesterday, when I went to film my new video for the Daily Wash, I deleted all of the source files from my memory card without moving them to my Mac. I mean, I don't need to explain the ins and outs to you, but what that basically meant was that I just completely lost an entire video just on the eve of publishing it, which was, I'm gonna be honest, I was pretty gutted. I would like to say that I got over it really quickly, but I didn't. I sulked for an evening. But here I am, filming it again. Funnily enough, the video that I was filming, during which process I then deleted the video for the Weekly Wash, I actually knocked onto manual focus as well. So when I looked at that video after realising that I deleted the Weekly Wash, it was completely out of focus, the entire video, man. I was so gutted yesterday evening, but there's something about moments like that that I get a little bit of a kick out of. You know, they're really painful and they suck, but then I'm like, fuck it, man. I'm not gonna let it beat me. Maybe it can beat me for an evening, but tomorrow I'm gonna push on, and not only am I gonna bounce back, but I'm gonna bounce back even better. So hopefully that's what I'm doing right now. Now that I've gotten that rant out of the way, I am actually gonna move straight into the episode. And my first recommendation today is a book called Rebel Ideas by Syed. And I'd actually seen Rebel Ideas knocking around particularly on the island in Waterstones. So they have these tables at the center of the bookshelves where they will showcase particular styles or genres of books. And I'd seen Rebel Ideas there. I'd also seen it knocking around on Amazon as well. But if I'm being completely honest, I'd never felt entirely compelled to buy it. What happened is that I eventually saw it on offer on Amazon. I think it was about £6, and it was just too good a deal to refuse. They got me. I'm really glad that I picked it up in the end. Rebel Ideas is about the importance of diverse thinking in organisations and other groups of people. Matthew covers a number of ways in which a lack of cognitive diversity can really negatively affect the performance of a group. And the book is filled with plenty of real life examples of the damage that this lack of diversity can do. Alongside those are explanations as to why diversity is so important and how we can foster it in our group or organisation or workplace. To pick out one specific part of the book, I'm going to show you a couple of diagrams now that demonstrate the difference between the work that can be done in a less diverse situation and a more diverse situation. Imagine that this first diagram represents the space of possible solutions to a problem. With just one individual involved, his or her expertise might give one specific solution. So as a manager, a founder, or I guess just a boss, we might think, cool, let's hire more people to increase our chances of solving the problem. This is how a lot of companies end up looking, unfortunately. People who get on well together tend to have similar interests, backgrounds, etc. And all of them might be really clever, but if they're too similar, we're still only covering a corner of the possible solution space. In the next diagram, diversity comes to save the day. By hiring people with different backgrounds, cultures, areas of strength and interest, we vastly improve the group's chance of coming up with a solution. So Matthew makes it clear early on in the book that what we're specifically looking for is cognitive diversity. But he also reveals that actually cognitive diversity and cultural diversity, which is what we kind of think of usually when someone says diversity, are highly correlated, which can only be a good thing. You know, it's good for us all to mix together. It's good for us to develop better relations between different cultures, races, countries, towns, cities, whatever. I should note quickly that what I covered there with the reproduction of those diagrams in the book only really represents basic diversity science. Matthew goes into way more detail, and Rebel Ideas is way more than just the basics. He really delves deeply into the different ways that a lack of diversity can harm groups, but also how improving the amount or increasing the amount of diversity can really have a positive effect on the achievement of companies and just generally groups of people. Some of the things that he talks about specifically in the book are the danger of dominance hierarchies, recombinant innovation, or just innovation in general. I always note that it's recombinant because I like the idea of recombinant innovation. I wrote a post about that actually, which I will put in the description. He also goes into detail about the difference between echo chambers and information bubbles, which I found so interesting. I'm thinking of doing an entire video dedicated to that topic alone. I really enjoyed Rebel Ideas, so much so that it has inspired a whole new project that I'm thinking about doing. I won't reveal any secrets now, but just keep your eyes open in the future, and I guess I'll reveal when I make the project that this was inspired by Rebel Ideas and the importance of diversity. But there we go. Rebel Ideas is a relatively cheap book. You can grab it on Amazon, and it's just packed with really interesting information about diversity and actionable advice as well, which is always a big plus for a book. My middle recommendation today:
I am the god of Bellendery.
Yeah?
And you have been a Belen.
What exactly have I done then?
You put your battery on charge last night, didn't you?
Right.
Except, what if you didn't?
Okay, then I'm back again to try my very best to get through to the end of this video. If this video ends up smooth in any way, or functional even in any way, then it's going to be an early Christmas miracle. Let's go back and continue from where I got cut off by the battery dying. My middle recommendation today is a bit of a meta recommendation. When I first started filming YouTube videos, I didn't really have any equipment. I just couldn't afford it. So I had to begin with what I already had, which for some reason was an Amazon tripod. I don't know why I bought that Amazon tripod, but there it was. So I started using that, and that's all I had at the very beginning. Actually, that's what I'm filming on right now because my budget hasn't really increased. You don't get paid an awful lot off of like 30 views a video, unfortunately. One day I'll be able to afford something a bit more fancy. What I did manage to buy eventually though was a Joby Gorillapod. As I got into the video making a little bit more, I did a bit of research as to what other people on YouTube were using to film their videos. Not just cameras, but equipment and the like. And that's how I came across the Gorillapod. So the Gorillapod comes in a few different sizes. The main difference I think is just the weight that each size Gorillapod can hold. And it's basically a tripod, but the great thing about it is the legs. The legs are bendy, and so what that means is that you can use the sort of like customizable nature of them to bend them into all sorts of positions and get some really cool angles for shots. Another cool thing that comes from these flexible legs is that you can bend them around things. So you can bend them around, say, a shelf to film from the shelf and it will just grip on, or bend them around another surface that you want to film from. So the one that I got only cost about 34 quid. Neither that's really good value for something that you can use for such a variety of shots, angles of shots, heights of shots. I don't actually use the Gorillapod to film the bulk of my talking segments just because it's kind of unnecessary. All I need is like a really still shot. My camera's just sitting on the tripod right now. It doesn't need to move, doesn't need to do anything cool. But what I have been using it for specifically is to film B-roll, and it's really increased the variety and type of B-roll that I can film. Also, just having a tripod, I think this is like camera science, but I might be wrong. I think holding a camera on a tripod rather than holding it directly in your hand actually lessens the quiver that you get from your hand, because when you hold stuff in your hands they shake a bit and they give you kind of quaky footage. So I strap it into my Gorillapod before I film any kind of B-roll. Another added benefit to the Gorillapod, separate from filming altogether, is that I think it's probably covered the cost I paid for it alone just from my using it to do video calls. So obviously video calls on my phone. Most of the time when I'm doing video calls, it's just on my phone because I don't use video calls for work or anything. And the difference, like, you might not think it'd make a big difference, but the difference between having something that you can just strap your phone into and there you go, you don't need to lean it precariously against a surface, a wall, or stack it on top of some books or anything. It just makes it so much simpler. You also don't have to worry about any kind of ugly angles where, you know, you're there filming, talking to your mate, and you realise all of a sudden you're at an angle where you've got like a ridiculous double chin. I kind of wish that I didn't do that now, but there you go, you got to see my double chin today, if you didn't get anything else. For a beginning video creator, I highly recommend grabbing a Gorillapod if you can afford one, either as your actual tripod to film your talking or whatever you're filming on, or just, I guess, like your B-roll as like a side thing, just to mix things up a little bit. As I said, mine was like a little over £30. I think the payload is 1 kilogram, which means that it can carry my phone and it can also carry a slightly heavier DSLR camera like my M50. Finally, I usually like to end up on something a little less taxing, and that usually means something that you can watch. So for my third recommendation this week, I'm going to be talking about The Queen's Gambit on Netflix, which is a television series starring Anya Taylor-Joy. The show actually only came out a couple of weeks ago, but it caught my eye after noticing that it has some really high ratings. So on Rotten Tomatoes, for example, it still has 100% rating. I'd also heard some other people talking about it very highly. I'll give you a quick synopsis of The Queen's Gambit. In the show, we follow chess prodigy Elizabeth Harmon as she moves from her humble beginnings in an orphanage all the way to the heights of global chess competition. I'm not a chess player myself, but I really admired the fact that the show wasn't afraid to include some of the more technical details of the game. You know, they could have just cut away from the board whenever, I mean, that would have made a pretty shit show, but they could have just cut away from the board whenever the games were going on. I mean, shows have done that when there is some kind of like highly technical thing being done. Piano playing, drawing. I mean, some great actors learn how to play the piano for roles, which is amazing. But The Queen's Gambit did not. They showed some of the more technical aspects, and they might have thought, you know, we don't want to include this. They might have dumbed it down for, I don't know, just like to make it more popular because some people aren't asked with stuff like that. But instead, their attention to detail elevated the show. Actually, when I researched a little bit more, this didn't come as such a surprise when I found out that they actually had former world chess champion Garry Kasparov as an advisor. The Queen's Gambit isn't entirely perfect. If I was to pick one fault, I would say there's some fairly questionable CGI landscapes in the background of a couple of shots. I think there's one where you're overlooking Moscow on a balcony, and it's very definitely not actually Moscow, but you can't complain too much. Also, if I was being especially picky, I might say that you could shave one episode off the entirety of the season. But at the same time, one of the things I really liked was the slow, considered development of Elizabeth Harmon's character. So maybe all the episodes were worthwhile. What's great about The Queen's Gambit is we build up this relationship with Elizabeth Harmon from a very young age, and we get to see her in numerous situations. One thing I would say about the character that was created by both whoever wrote it I guess I should have found out the name of that person. I'm going to get told off in the comments again. Whoever wrote it, and Anya Taylor-Joy, the character that was created, I think was a fairly original character. You know, original to the point that she was a bit of a mystery. You never quite knew how she was going to react to either adversity, so the negative situations and circumstances that she found herself in, but also to the positive ones as well. Like, she had some really interesting reactions to good things that happened to her, which I really liked, and that kept the show fresh all the way through. You know, that's what makes shows good, is when you don't know what's coming next. At a time when our own lives are starting to feel a little bit bland, and the coronavirus is keeping us pinned in our homes with excitement at bay, the Queen's Gambit delivers a healthy dose of escapism. Rather than sort of wallowing in self-pity of our inability to leave the houses and do anything fun, instead, for a short while when you watch it, you get to live a different life. The life of a chess phenom who battles both her opponents and also the vices that come along with any great success. Okay then, with all three covered, finally I made it. That marks the end of the episode. It's probably a pretty long episode. I apologise for that. I don't want to make these too long because it's hard to get all the way through. I guess that's a good reason why I break them up and I break them into clips. You can find more of my work if you'd like to at jackandthewash.com. You'll find my writing there, you'll find some book recommendations there, and you'll also find some movie recommendations there, although admittedly very few movie recommendations. I need to update that section on my website, also the books a little bit, but there we go. This has been the Weekly Wash 14 and has been a pain in the arse to make. A pain in the arse, but at the same time I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't bloody enjoy it. Go create something, man. It's so much fun. Like, even if no one's watching, just create it because you enjoy doing it. Find something that you enjoy doing, and you might only enjoy it after doing it many times and getting half decent at it. Life is a complicated thing. This, as I said, has been the Weekly Wash 14. I am going to take a break now until the next video. Enjoy the rest of your week and take care. Bye bye.